Welcome back to another Welcome back to another edition of the Instant Reaction of the Night Report podcast. Richie Schneiderite joining us once again. This one, another bad news pod, guys. Sorry to say it, but Taekwon Underwood has announced he's leaving the program to become the wide receivers coach at Pittsburgh. Richie, this one feels like a bigger loss than the other coaches we lost earlier this year. There's another one we'll talk about later in the pod, Jim Panagos going to Kansas, but this one's the more impactful one in my eyes. It seemed like we were recruiting really well this class in 2023 with wide receivers, especially down in Florida. What are we losing in Coach Underwood, and how'd this one all come together so quickly?
Honestly, there's a big question mark there. I know he was just tweeting on Friday after the Taj Harris news. He was quote tweeting people that were saying like, oh, I can't wait for Underwood to coach this wide receiver room, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be the best wide receiver room ever. It obviously came together pretty quickly. I don't know what kind of offer Narduzzi gave him or whatever. He's going to get a chance to coach one of the best wide receivers in the country in Jordan Addison, maybe the best wide receiver.
Yeah, despite what some on the boards might say about Jordan Addison, he is probably, if not the best, one of the top 5 receivers for playing in college football next year.
Yeah, no, but some say Kenny Pickett made him. I'm going to disagree and say he made Kenny Pickett, but to each their own, whatever. It's kind of a slap in the face a little bit too, because this is a Schiano guy. He played for Schiano. Schiano gave him a shot, like we were just talking about at out of Lafayette. It's not like he had a ton of experience out of Lafayette. I think it was 2 years, 3 years, maybe tops. And he brought him up to the big leagues. He did pretty well recruiting. He was one of their go-to recruiters for the state of Florida between him and Fran Brown. And now you're losing him. He was a player's coach. Everyone in the wide receiver room loved him. You saw a couple. You saw him develop guys too. You saw Bo Melton have a couple of his best years. Yeah, he was a little bit older and a little bit more seasoned, but he did have some of his best years under Underwood. Also, you saw Cruikshank start to shine. You saw a couple other guys start to flash here and there. And it seemed like this upcoming year might have been his best year yet for his position group. So this is a big loss. There's no hide in that one. It seems like we've been saying that a lot lately, which is not a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a pretty good run of stable coaching staff, which you couldn't say under Rutgers or under Schiano, really, even during his first tenure. So to have the staff they did for the first 2 years basically stay intact, you got to tip your hat to Schiano for that. I know that Schiano learned under Urban kind of how to refine his coaching method. And Urban asked his assistants to give him 2 years. He'd support you 100%, but give me 2 years. Don't leave in a year. So maybe that's kind of the talk he gave his guys. But this is totally a lateral move as well, going to Pittsburgh. It'd be different if you went to Ohio State or if you went to even Penn State. I know that pains me to say that personally. But if you're going up a level in the job, sure, that makes sense. But this one, I can't imagine it was money purposes. Like we could have probably matched or done better than whatever he's getting at Pittsburgh. So yeah, this one feels a little personal.
Yeah, it like I said, it stings a bit. I know some people are speculating on the boards, and I think it's pretty well known. Like Schiano is not the easiest guy in the world to work for. He is going to be an old school football coach. He's probably going to yell a lot. But that's just football at the end of the day. Some people, I hate to say the word, but it's like it seems like football, not just players, but coaches have been like pussified, if I want to say that, kind of. I hate to put it on the podcast like that, but like it just seems like everyone, and I'm not saying Underwood's like that, but it just seems like some coaches are just can't handle the fact that their boss yells at them like, hey, welcome to everyday life.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a tough loss. It's interesting. It's just because it's such a lateral move. Pitt is probably on the same level as Rutgers, I would agree. I'd argue. Whether different conferences, obviously, and maybe they've had a couple better records, but on the national stage, they're probably around the same. And like you said, this isn't like a upgrade at all. Like, so now I don't know how you're going to upgrade this because you're kind of already getting close to spring ball. You got to get someone in there quickly. Maybe you just promote someone temporarily, kind of what they did with that 10th position spot. They've rotated it between Brandon Fuhrer, between Demeyer Shaw, who could be a name at wide receivers coach. And then a couple other guys have been rotating in and out. I don't know really what they're going to do here. It's going to be an intriguing next couple of weeks, as I think we've said for the past 3 months now.
Yeah. Are you hearing any names? Like I know this just happened like an hour ago. Are you hearing any potential names to replace Underwood, or is it still too early in the process?
It's kind of early, but like as I actually learned this from I think it was Pat Hobbs that said this. You always have a list of 5 guys, no matter what, for every job, just no matter what, because you always got to be ready. I believe it was Pat Hobbs. I'm not 100% sure, but I might be giving him a lot of credit here, but whatever. We always have a list of guys ready to go. So like I got 4 names probably ready to go. Demire Shaw is probably the leader, I would say right now, just because he does have wide receivers coach experience. He has been on the road for Rutgers already. He's been out recruiting. He's pretty well known as a recruiter. I think he was the wide receivers coach. I just had it pulled up. He was the wide receivers coach over at Fordham not too long ago. And then he is now, where was he? Wide receivers coach at Fordham. He was a QC at Baylor and then GA at Temple. And according to the Temple guys I've talked to, they all say that they all kind of rave about his recruiting prowess. He never was able to recruit off campus for them, but when he had guys on campus, he was able to get some of the big names to come to Temple, which is a feat in its own.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. It seems like, we've talked about this and it's been posted on the boards. There might be a bit of a shakeup on the coaching staff this year. Yeah. So that's what makes projecting who could be out, the next hire tough, because you don't know really what they're hiring for. Like, could Coach A move to position B, and could Coach B move to position C, which opens up, there might be a position open that we don't even know about right now. Just because we had a wide receiver coach leave doesn't necessarily mean we'll be hiring a wide receiver coach. So
and I love to speculate. I'm pretty obvious, I guess, at this point. It does seem like Augie Hoffman is talking with a lot of the offensive linemen. We talked to Willie Tyler not too long ago. He mentioned Augie first. Now, if you see like the other offensive linemen are all mentioning Augie, and it's like, all right, well, guys got offensive line experience, NFL offensive line experience, and produced like quite a bit of offensive linemen over at St. Joe's. It would make sense for him to go over there, especially when you have Ulrich, who's coached just about every position along the offense, whether it be running backs, tight ends, offensive coordinator, offensive line. He was a special teams coordinator at one point. I'm sure he can help out there. So that's going to be interesting. And then you have Nuns too, who also coached running backs and tight ends for Rutgers and was OC at Bosco, was head coach at Bergen, was technically Rutgers OC for 6 games or whatever it was. Yeah, I think you're going to mix and match there. And then there are a couple other names I think I didn't get a chance to mention before. And one intriguing one that I keep looking back at is former Lafayette head coach, who was the boss of Taekwon Underwood, and John Garrett. He was the wide receivers coach for Schiano down at Tampa in 2013. He's got pretty good experience too I think he coached Kyle Lauletta at Richmond when he was the OC. He was the OC there. He was the OC at Oregon State, pass game coordinator for the Cowboys. He's assistant head coach for Virginia, wide receivers coach Virginia, Bengals, tight ends, Bengals, Cardinals, Bengals, tight ends, something else. His list is insane. He's since coaching, a ton of experience coaching from 95 to 2021. So he's a name I'd probably keep an eye on just because Lafayette literally just let him go. He has experience with Schiano coaching for him. He kind of knows how he works already. He's got college coaching experience. He's got college OC experience in the Pac-12 and in FCS at one of the best FCS schools in Richmond. So I really like him as a potential name.
And would give us a huge leg up for transfer target Steven Stilianos, who's still on the market, who's going to be coming in for the spring.
Good point.
But you got to wonder, what kind of juice does Schiano want with one of these hires? He's got to hire a high-level recruiter. Like, he's got Fran, he's got himself, but who else can you really point to that's like officially an assistant that you're like, oh, this guy's a stud recruiter? I don't know if there is another one. So
that's where it's interesting, because I don't know if Lafayette the head coach is going to be like the juice that they need for the Big Ten level recruiting.
But he seems like he's like a John the Bob Frazier type of coach, where he's probably a really good coach, but he's not going to be much on the recruiting trail other than like the statesman kind of role, like the Joe Susan, Bob Frazier, where they're good guys, but they're not going to connect with a 17-year-old kid, especially.
I mean, as long as the guy doesn't want to take a break from coaching, which I mean, after coaching from 95 straight to 21, I would try to bring him in like a defensive director of personnel or some shit like that. Give him some
what about some kind of analyst role?
Yeah, something like that. Start like some people and some coaching staffs, I feel like have to start doing what Nick Saban's doing at Bama. You're not going to get Bill O'Brien to come here as an analyst, or a Lane Kiffin type, or whoever, Derek Mason, et cetera, et cetera. But start getting these lower level coaches that you have ties to and start bringing like, all right, you want to come on as offensive analyst? You see my coaching tree. We're going to get you to that next level. Or heck, maybe someone leaves and we just promote you within, like a Demire Shaw type, who might get promoted within.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason why it works for Saban, which some people might not realize, is that when somebody gets fired from a coaching position, their entire contract is guaranteed. But they also have something called I forget what the exact name of it is, but it's offsetting language in their contract. Mm-hmm. So when they sign to a new place, you basically take whatever they're making at the new place and minus from what you owe them. So remember when Chris Ash was hired, people were wondering what his salary was at DC, because that would be money that we wouldn't have to pay him for being our head coach. Yeah. So if a guy like Derek Mason, who gets fired from Vanderbilt, still has like 4 years left on his contract, is guaranteed to make like, $4 million a year.
Yeah.
If Saban offers you basically like the coaching internship of a lifetime, even if it's $50,000, you're still making money. You're still pretty in a pretty good spot, even if you're there for 2 years. So,
and adding all these former head coaches, it's not like they're not going to give you tidbits here and there, and you're going to learn something too.
Exactly.
Whether you like to admit it or not. Like, and is like, well, no in terms of like knowing everything coaching, but like getting tidbits here and there from like a guy like John Garrett, who's been coaching at Lafayette since 2017 as head coach, you could learn something. And he's developed obviously high level guys in Stellanos.
And you're around some really high level coaches yourself. So, if you end up getting a new job, you might have known some QC guy who's a great quarterback coach, but kind of under the radar from Bama. So it brings you into the coaching tree of that coach, which is always a great thing, because recommendations, getting to know other like high level dudes, like look at Saban's like coaching tree. He's got like how many like NFL coaches right now, how many college head coaches, like
it's insane.
not that Schiano is that kind of level, but there's plenty of head coaches in the NCAA that coached under Schiano too. So
yeah,
his tree is growing.
I was doing my homework a little bit on it just to see, like, going back through his coaching history. I can't talk. During his time at Rutgers, and he's got an interesting little coaching tree between like PJ Fleck, Jeff Hafley, and then there's a ton of NFL guys that I didn't ever know about. Like, I guess I knew about, but I just never really paid attention to. Ton of NFL assistant coaches that Schiano's had on his staff at one point, between Andrew DiGiaco, who's the quarterback's coach over at Minnesota Vikings. I had a bunch too. I just lost them all. Atlanta Falcons D-line coach Gary Emanuel, Baltimore Ravens pass game coordinator Chris Hewitt, Carolina Panthers tight ends coach and Angelico. Like, he's got a bigger track record than people think.
That'd be an interesting name too, Ange, if he's willing to come back to college, because the Panthers staff they're on the hot seat. Like Matt Rule, he went from a darling in the coaching community to everybody wants him out at Carolina.
Did you read that article the other day about him?
No.
So obviously this isn't happening now, but he had interest in Penn State should Franklin have left. And now apparently his eyes are shifting a little bit more north
to Michigan.
Yeah. So
I did see that actually.
Now, would Michigan do that? I don't. That's where it gets intriguing, because Harbaugh is interviewing with the Vikings. We found out like yesterday or the day before, whatever it was. I don't know if you're Michigan, would you even go after Rule, or who do you?
Well, here's the thing: like Michigan's going to get a good coach, but you're at the point of the process now where you really have to do like the Brian Kelly big game hunting, where like there's not going to be that high level like assistant or the high level like coordinator that you could target as your next head coach, which Michigan probably wouldn't do anyway. But you're really going to have to pay up, which Michigan can do. They have the money to do it.
Yeah.
But not an ideal time to have to look for a coach after the coaching cycle's over.
You see Kelly's,
because you also have to fill a staff out too.
Oh yeah, that too. Do you see Kelly's new video? It's so cringeworthy.
Yes, the spinning 360 video stuff.
He went from like I want to be like like super Christian, never did anything wrong, and now he's just doing like, oh, he's like, oh, he's doing the gritty.
Yep, me and my family.
I'm like, this dude is just something else.
He's pretty painful to watch. And it's just clear that he's a used car salesman. He's a good coach, but you think somebody is hard to coach with. Like Coach Kelly has to be up in the top 5 of hardest people to work with.
Yeah, he's got to be a pain in the ass. But yeah, going back to Rutgers, I don't really know what they're going to do here. This is an interesting one. Like you said, they're probably going to switch around. We keep hearing they're going to switch around a couple guys. And it does sound like Augie's going to shift somehow towards an offensive line coach, whether that be full-time O-line coach or O-tackles coach or something like that. Keeping him on staff's huge, because I think I've said it before on here. Penn State did try to get him, and he said basically no. I don't know what role they were going to take him for, but I mean, they're obviously not a line coach, and they have a running backs coach that's pretty damn good. But regardless, to hold him away from Penn State is a huge thing to do.
That was this year they tried to get him?
When he got the extension in January last year.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a reason for an extension, do the math thing.
Yep.
But to keep him on board is huge. I know people aren't super high on Augie because he hasn't recruited the Big North, but the Big North is such a different animal. It's not easy to recruit in general. But they are starting to turn it around a little bit. You're starting to see once they get wins, they'll get more wins, they'll get more players, and they'll get more guys from the Big North. And it's a way.
Plus, you got to keep getting those top kids. Like, although Keir Price wasn't like a 4-star kid.
No,
everybody who played against him knew he was like the best player in the Big North this year.
Yeah.
So that carries a lot of weight with kids. Getting a kid like Sadir Mitchell would be huge because he is like the top rated kid, arguably in the state next year from Bergen. So you just got to keep stacking those wins. Like with Schiano, like the first time around, it really took till like 2010, 2011 to really kind of break through because they kept landing like the second tier kids and they kept turning them into NFL talent. And it really took like, what was it, like the Leonte Carew, Darius Hamilton crew that I think it actually started with like Gary Nova even because he was like one of the first big breakthrough guys when we got halfway.
Yeah, that next class, the Carew one, could have been. Was it Carew the same as Nova?
Carew was a year old, younger than him.
The year after recruiting wise, because that class, those 4 players, it was Hamilton, Carew, Elijah Shoemate, and who's the DB that went to Colorado?
Oh, Yuri Wright.
If they could have got the other 2 and Shoemate and Wright, that team would have been insane.
Well, you also got to think like the following. We would have gotten Jordan Fuller too.
Yeah, Will Fuller.
No, Will Fuller. No, not Will Fuller.
Who would have played quarterback and would have looked pretty good.
Was it Will Fuller?
Yeah, it wasn't. I think so. I think Will Fuller was the one who happened, right?
So I think we're thinking of the same guy, but Will Fuller is the receiver.
Who the hell? Yeah. Devin Fuller.
That's him. Yep.
That's who it was. And it's interesting because Schiano actually told him he could have played quarterback when he came in.
Yes.
He doesn't play quarterback anymore, which I still to this day think he would have been phenomenal at quarterback.
Yeah, we would have given him a chance, but I think he would have switched if Schiano wasn't in love with the idea.
Yeah. But, I mean, pretty damn good receiver. Played in the league for 2 years. So.
Yeah, and his brother now is the starting safety on the Rams. I know he got hurt, so he's not playing right now, but his brother has been playing phenomenal.
That's going to be a good game later on.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited for that. Quick recap on Panagos, though. He has become the new defensive line coach at Kansas, which I think Schiano was ultimately hoping that announcement would come before the Watson news. But I think when Watson became available as like an option, you can't really wait to announce that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you can get Watson before signing day, it was like last ditch effort maybe for Igbinosun.
Yep.
That one I'm not concerned about because it's a clear, like I know people on the boards, like someone said before, they're like, they lost 4 coaches this offseason. It's so like, this is scary. And I'm like, Shire, it's a special teams coordinator. That's just throw this one out the window. That doesn't matter. Keith Bruno is going to fill in pretty well. They're going to they have other guys on staff that can fill in on that role without having to take up a spot for on the road recruiting. Rob Smith got fired. There's no way around it. Let's just stop that one right there. Like, yeah, not
huge upgrade in Harris Simiak. Like I'm so thrilled. I can't wait to see what he does next year. Honestly, just given what we've heard about him.
Yeah, between him and between Watson, end of the day they're upgrades. So the other 2? Who cares? Like it's college football. Stop acting like you have to show like I don't even know what the term is. Show like you don't have to keep these. You can keep the relationship with telling these guys like, all right, you got your 2 years here. Let's move on. We got someone better. Sorry to tell you.
Sure.
Only lost his Underwood, and that's really it.
And I trust Schiano has, like you were saying about Hobbs, I guarantee he has a list of guys, from his like top choices down through guys he would accept as the next offensive coach, whoever that assistant ends up being. Another name we kind of talked about off camera, but has been like mentioned as an up and comer is Savon Huggins. Maybe we can get him in. He'd be a great replacement because it sounds like he's got the same level of like, ability to connect with kids, but also seems like he's kind of pretty good with the X's and O's stuff too.
Yeah.
So I
easily an insert name. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I have no inside information on this, but it seems like, when you hear a name mentioned a few times enough, like there's probably something to it.
Yeah, but there's a couple other names that are going to be on our hot board that we're posting soon. I think one I told you about was Peter Collins. He was an offensive analyst for Illinois for 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
Yep.
He helped out their wide receivers coaches. He was an OC at a D3 college before that. Spent 3 years at Rutgers as player development, and then spent a few years as a GA at before Rutgers. Spent three years as a GA down at Florida International with Butch Davis. So it's like, all right, the Butch Davis connection. Butch Davis and Schiano are connected. So Schiano's pretty well known about this guy. He's got Big Ten experience as a QC or offensive analyst, whatever you want to call it. So I mean, it's not a bad addition, but again, it's not the sexy hire that you want. So
for sure. But Schiano has shown some rabbits out of his head this offseason regarding coaches. So this one could be like oh shit, look who we hired at, this position coach with this. So I'd imagine there could be some interesting names that we end up hearing thrown around in the next coming day and week. So
yeah, I could see him trying to poach a Power 5 coach. I would probably keep an eye out for like the Boston College staff. I know a couple dudes up there that can recruit pretty well. I'd probably even take a peek at like the UMass staff, because I know it's UMass at the end of the day, but like the guys, Don Brown. Don Brown's a pretty damn good head coach.
Yep.
So
yeah,
there's names everywhere. It's just a matter of finding out who they're interested in and then going from there. And then though they're going to do interviews, I'm sure almost immediately. I'm sure I like to think Schiano knew about this, but at the same time, he was just tweeting Friday about how he's so excited to coach. Like, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Do you know his contract was expired, right? He's
technically, I think it was like I can actually probably pull it up for you because I like to annoy the hell out of the Oprah request lady. Not a fan of me. She's like, you submitted this one like 2 months ago, and I'm like, yeah, I want to see it again.
Oh my god, I got to see if it's changed.
Yeah, like
you could just tell me if it changed, or you could send me the Oprah.
Yeah, it's pain in the neck. But who's a wide receivers coach? Joe Daly. All right, maybe not Joe Daly, but maybe I was over.
Joe Daly, is that the UNC former quarterback?
Yes.
Okay, so he went to St. Peter's, I believe. He was the guy we played in 2006, I think.
St. Peter's, Freehold, New Jersey, native. Maybe I'm onto something. I just threw shit out of a wall and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you have to look at how does this person have any connection with either the state of New Jersey or Schiano. And usually, Schiano hires from within his web of influence. Harris Simiak, obviously, he was, his head coach is PJ Fleck, who PJ Fleck worked under Schiano. So if you're going to speculate on these things, guys, like we all like to, at least try and find some connection, because you're probably not wrong. Like if you can find a connection, Schiano definitely knows of the connection and definitely knows of the guy. So.
And I know people are like, oh, yeah, but what about this guy? And I'm like, yeah, look, connection to Schiano. Look, connection to New Jersey. Done. That's it. Like, that is his whole MO, this whole, 2.0 tenure. And it's actually, Joe Daly makes a lot of sense when I look at it.
He would. But some people like to throw out, weird names. It's like, well, this guy, he's Eastern Washington's receivers coach. He actually coached Cooper Kupp when he was here. Could we go after him? It's like, I'm just making shit up because this is kind of stuff that some people post. It's like, why would where's the connection here? This makes no sense. He's a West Coast guy, never coached under Schiano, hasn't even been in the state. Let's be real, guys.
It's so funny. It's actually hilarious. Actually, the more I look at it, what about KJ Stroud?
Where's he at now?
He's coaching high school technically. But he's a name. He played for Rutgers. Actually, when did he transfer to Bethune Cookman?
Is either his last year or his last 2 years. I think so. Remember, one of our Schiano's receivers coach ended up coaching at Bethune Cookman. Do you remember that?
Schiano's receiver. Who is that?
I don't remember his name. If you look up Bethune Cookman's coaching history, it'll probably jump out to you. So it was probably around 2010.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned Bethune Cookman is that KJ Stroud played there in 2011. You know who the quarterback's coach was at Bethune Cookman in 2011? Joe Daly.
Nope. Really?
I'm telling you, this makes too much sense. It's going to happen. Mark it down, boys. Joe Daly.
It was Brian Jenkins. Remember him?
Boys and girls. Sorry.
He was the wide receiver coach in 2009 at Rutgers. And then he was the head coach at Bethune Cookman for 5 years, and then he went to Alabama State for a couple of years.
Oh,
now
where's he at now?
Now he's at Edward Waters, which is an NAIA school. in Jacksonville,
I mean,
Florida.
He actually had a pretty good head coaching record, minus the 0-3 in the playoffs. But
yeah, 55-26 as a head coach. He's won 3 conference championships. It's kind of surprising he left Bethune-Cookman because he won all those MEAC championships at Bethune-Cookman. He left for Alabama State. I'm not sure, like, in terms of FCS.
yeah, holy shit. He had a really good record. Well, I'm telling you right now, I wasn't going to put him on our hot board, but he's on our hot board.
Yeah. Bethune-Cookman went 46-14, and then he went to Alabama State, and things kind of fell apart. But
Fort Lauderdale native. I'm just like, right, there's a lot of speculation just between names. I'm Joe Daly's John Garrett. It's this random dude from Illinois I was telling you about.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'll hear some solidified names moving forward. But feel free, guys, in the thread about Underwood, feel free to post your connect. Like, I know a lot of the forums do the kind of stuff where they like do like internet research. Just post who you think it's going to be.
Post it in this thread about this podcast.
Post it in this thread.
So post it in here.
Yeah, so post who you think is a good option for wide receiver coach and kind of give your reasoning why. Because I think all options are on the table right now. Just make sure it makes sense. New Jersey connection, Shiano connection. Don't just post weird shit that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but the UC Santa Barbara wide receivers coach spent a year at Delaware, and that's pretty close.
Yeah, he was Wes Welker's JV coach back in '97, so he might be a good receiver coach here.
I love some of this, the speculation. It's hilarious.
It is. But we're going pretty long on this one.
Yeah.
Richie, you got any final things to say before we sign off here?
Just quick tidbit about Rutgers basketball. Heck of a comeback. I don't know how they pulled that one off.
Yeah.
I don't want
Mag, man.
Into this because I know Craig and Chris are recording tonight or today or something, but sweating a little bit.
Yeah. So keep on the lookout for that pod, guys. They'll break down the game and kind of where we're looking as a program the rest of the season. We're starting our tough stretch of games this week. After I think the Northwestern game, it gets brutal. So
that was an easy one. It's not easy. I just watched them keep it up with Illinois, and it's not easy.
Yeah, this is a brutal conference. We all knew that, and we really needed to stack wins the last few games, and we kind of
didn't
let down a little bit. But
oh well.
All right, guys. This has been another episode of the Night Report podcast. We are signing off. Thanks for joining.